Hey, this is Chris with Hacking Leadership. On today's discussion on employee engagement, I want to talk about engaging employees through humor. And I want to talk about this specifically because I think this is something that Lorenzo does really well. He has for as long as I've known him, and there's kind of been this rise a little bit in leadership training and development programs that have tried to kind of propose that leaders should be more humorous, and almost trying to train them on being more humorous. And while I don't think that they are necessarily have zero effectiveness, I think that they are kind of very narrowly focused on, there might be very specific situations where it works for one person, but not necessarily broader. And I think that leaders who are not incredibly witty or humorous to start with, they potentially could lose some of what they do have, which is just their authenticity, or the feeling of authenticity they have with their teams, if they try something new thinking that it's going to work out well for them, and then it ends up not working out well for them. And but that doesn't stop me from knowing that humor it can be a very, very effective leadership tool when used correctly in the right circumstances and with the right people.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I'm a huge proponent of humor. Maybe even in parts of my career where it was overused,
right?
Maybe continues to be sometimes. But I think that we talk about like having fun, having a good time, opening up, not, taking our work serious, but not taking ourselves too serious. Like that for me is the underlying element of like humor. If it's not like, let me go up here and do a 5-minute stand-up set for my team.
Right.
It's like, let's laugh at ourselves. Let's have some fun. Let's have some healthy banter amongst each other that allows us to be able to know that, like, we can be human. We can be, we can be personal in a way that doesn't feel like it's just completely highly focused only on getting work done. And just really dry and everything. Now, to your point, like I think that there's a lot that has to be considered there, and you have to be very conscious of, when and how and where and why. And you have to be really, conscious of how people take humor. Like you have to know your team and know the people that you're around. And we've all been there and seen it. We've all been around people in social, dynamics where somebody said something that was funny to you, but maybe not funny to others.
Right.
Or it felt like it was just the wrong timing to say something. Somebody got nervous and they tried to say something funny to kind of break the ice or release some of the tension, but that created more, like those things happen too. But I do think that there's an element of it where, laughing and having some fun to me, is how humor is applied appropriately when you're working.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think when it comes to, I think the most effective humor is one-on-one if you're a leader of people, because it's the more people that are around you, the harder it is to be humorous in a way that lands correctly with every person that is around you. And the larger that group gets, the harder it becomes. With individual people, you're talking about just an individual relationship, and a person who does this well will know what level of humor, what they can say to one person versus another based on whatever that relationship is. There are people who I've had working relationships with where things I've said to them in humor, or that they've said to me in humor, would have been career ending for them to say to somebody else, right? Let's be honest about it, right? But to the right person, it's not. It's laughed at and you move on because you have the benefit of the relationship, backing it up and understanding, where that's rooted in. I think when a leader is trying to be humorous in front of a group of people, a widespread group of people that all report to them, a lot of diversity, different roles, different positions, backgrounds, different levels of time and relationship with that leader, sometimes the only type of humor that works well is it can be like self-deprecating humor. So if a leader becomes self-deprecating in front of the group, then that can be effective. But even that can be a pitfall for some people, because if you're self-deprecating on something that you shouldn't be bad at, but are bad at as the leader, and the team knows it, then it's just like, oh my gosh, this person knows they're bad at being a leader on this team. They don't care. That can land the wrong way too. So it has to be something like, you stepped outside of your role to help with something, to do something that you wouldn't normally do and were not good at it, but you kind of did your best at it, and you're self-deprecating about that process. That can work out well. But that's kind of the only place that works when it comes to a large group of people. I want to go over some of the things that leaders can do if they feel like that the humor they're trying to insert into their teams is landing incorrectly, or if they're trying to get better at this. But first, let's give it up to word from one of our sponsors. All right, if you're a leader and you're trying to figure this road out and navigate it for yourself and kind of figure out, first of all, if you already know that you're good at this, then like this is, if the feedback that you've been given is positive, and if you have solid relationships with people individually, then chances are your way of inserting humor when necessary or when you want to is done correctly. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't make a misstep and cross the line every once in a while. It just means that in general, you probably have a good way forward here. If you don't feel like the way that you insert humor as a leader is effective, or that it's building relationships and it's hurting them more, the first thing you want to do is, anytime you had an opportunity to try to be humorous, you need to pull people aside after the fact and ask them how it landed. People who you can trust. You don't want people who are just going to say, yeah, of course you did great, when you can't really trust that they're being honest with you. And you don't want to ask people who, have it out for you, or who are hypercritical about everything, because then you don't know whether you've done the right thing. These have to be people you have a solid enough relationship with, where they want to see you succeed, and they can tell you whether or not how you threw something out there, whether it landed correctly or didn't land correctly, or give you kind of the nuance of it. That's really the only way to become more effective at doing this, is kind of figuring out, okay, being able to see back in time, connect the dots looking backward, and say, okay, I can see why that didn't land correctly, or why it landed well with this team but not this team, based on whatever their history with the organization is, or culturally, or anything. But the more data you can get from people after the fact, the more likely you are to, kind of make better decisions going forward, and kind of have the empathy that it takes to see the result of something you're about to say through the eyes of everybody who's about to hear it, and then kind of tailoring that thing accordingly.
Yeah, I think the highlighted point around checking in with those around you, I think, is critical here. Again, it's some people are naturally funny. Some people can read a room. Some people have an understanding of social nuance and what's going on and group dynamics and things like that. And then there are people that may be a little bit more oblivious, maybe haven't been in enough different social spaces to be able to understand how things come across, or how they could come across, or when's a good time to inject humor and things. So if this is something that you're listening and you feel like, yeah, I could probably do more here, it is going to be critical that as you do it, or as you see it happen amongst your team, that you are checking in with those, that you're very conscious of, those in the room, or those kind of in the conversations. You need to look at body language. You need to really understand, are you making sure that your meaning of injecting some fun into a conversation, or having a little bit of humor, it's just about that. And that if there are elements that may be making people uncomfortable, or they're not used to, or you pick up on things, or you have people around you that you can trust that will talk to you about it, you definitely want to bring people in if this is any part of something that you're working on, because it can feel like, oh, I can be funny, and then you take your personal humor and the way that you talk to your friends and family and try to do that at work, and many times it does not go over well. So I definitely would say, make sure that you're checking in with those around you, if this is something that you're going to be doing more of.
Yeah, you're spot on with that. And I will say, lastly, be very careful not to sacrifice something really good that you already have to try to get something else that you perceive as better. There is no question that leadership is about relationships, and there's no question that a person who has humor and wit and the ability to kind of do that on the fly probably has a much easier time creating and building relationships than a person who doesn't, because that's how human beings are naturally wired, to gravitate towards people like that. But if you are not that kind of person, and you attempt to be, what can end up happening is a situation where you A, weren't successful, and B, you lost what you did have with that person or that team, which is just that they knew what to expect of you and that you were authentic in your lack of humor, but there was still that level of trust. You can be a very effective leader if you are not a humorous leader. You absolutely can be. You can be a very effective builder of relationships if you are not a humorous person. It just might take a little bit more time and more interaction with people to make that happen. But that's better than killing the relationship or the leadership as a whole by trying to be something that you're not. So be very careful. There's a lot of nuance here. If you can give it a shot, then great. You might find something within yourself that you never knew you had and go forward with it. But that feedback is critical, because if it's not going the right way, you could do more damage than just being happy with the way things are. So keep that in mind as you go forward with this. Thank you all for listening today. We'll see you next Thursday for our next discussion on employee engagement. You have a great day.